Wallace is staring at me. He wants... I'm sorry, Wallace. Are you there?
That's fine, John.
Thank you. Last week, we really enjoyed your Kurt Cobain behind the music. I mean, you're really bringing to light some facts that people have never heard before about some of these musicians. And this week's Todd Petty, do you have some interesting commentary on Todd? Tom?
Well, John, most of the more notable names in rock music legend are inarguably extraordinary individuals, gifted with a singular talent for songwriting and showmanship, and most will state that they've known they were destined to stardom at an early age. But many of rock's more fascinating stories concern absolutely common individuals who are ordinary in every way, until changed by extraordinary and sometimes heartbreaking life events. And that's definitely been the case with Tom Petty. He was raised by a somewhat already famous family in Gainesville, Florida, and was the nephew of NASCAR racing legend Richard Petty. As a child, Tom was a picture of absolute normalcy. Of course, he was a huge fan of stock car racing. Family records note that he spent most of his rural childhood playing cowboys and Indians, and that his favorite foods were Kraft macaroni and cheese and Tang powdered orange drink. And his grades in elementary school culminated to an average score of C. He was right down the line average in every way. That is, until the night of November 20th of 1960, when, at the age of 10, Tom was involved in a high-speed interstate collision while operating his father's car without permission. His older cousin, Kyle, had been teaching Tom to drive at the time, and while Kyle escaped the accident unharmed, the young Tom Petty wasn't as lucky. Though he survived the crash, Tom suffered irreversible head trauma and the loss of more than 18% of his prefrontal lobe and spent nearly 4 years in a coma. But he did bring something back from his long dream, because he came back singing. His first apparent sign of life was a medium-pitched humming, accompanied by a rhythmic side-to-side rocking of his head and a lackadaisical smile. When he awoke, coincidentally during the Beatles' now historic performance on The Ed Sullivan Show in February of 1964, Tom was figuratively an infant. He couldn't speak, walk, read, or even feed himself, much less take himself to the bathroom. Even after years of rehabilitation, which was a slow, difficult process, Tom's speech would remain slurred and somewhat difficult to understand for the rest of his life. And though, to this day, he'll always be a virtually learning disabled survivor of severe brain injury with the intelligence of a 10-year-old Southern boy, it's an extraordinarily quirky singing voice and a very lucky knack for finding the right chords on a guitar that have brought great acclaim and a career now spanning more than 30 years to Tom Petty, who still likes Tang with mac and cheese, loves the Beatles, and swears he'll never ride in a car with Kyle Petty again. And that's this week's Today in Rock History. I'm Wallace Edwards. Now back to the real deal with John Clay Wolf.
Behind the music has nothing on you, Wallace. Nothing.
Thanks, John.
Nothing.
It explains this song right here. Why I can't really understand what Tom Petty's saying. You know?
Never have been able to.
Even the look in his eyes.
Have you ever watched an interview with the man?
Yes.
Odd.